Sunday, time for Unlock the Middle. Here we are together once again every Sunday, bringing you the best that's out there in the United States. All our guests are top notch, A plus, here to making sure that they bring their tools to the trade so that we can expand the knowledge all over. Josh Dawad, proud principal of Memorial Pathway Academy, and Garland is the Garland USA. Welcome me to the flag show of Unlock the Middle, making sure that we're all growing stronger together. Because tomorrow's Monday, another day of success, another day of adventures, another day of seeing our beautiful students with their awesome smiles ready to get to work. So it doesn't matter where you're at, whether you're in Alaska, whether you are in Hawaii, whether you're in Maine, or where you're down in Florida, or anywhere in the 48. Let's grow stronger together. I got peanut butter in my mouth right now. Can't get it out of my mouth. Stronger together. What do you think about that, Dean Packer?
Hey, one of these days you're going to say from North Dakota to New Mexico instead of from Alaska to Maine. But at the end of the day, it is a great ability for us to be able to connect across the country and across the world with amazing educational leaders and people who just inspire others to become a little bit better. My name is Dean Packard. I am the principal of Charlton Middle School in Charlton, Massachusetts. And together tonight with Josh, we're going to bring you yet another great guest, someone that you can actually learn from, grow from, and more importantly, become just a little bit better from. There's no doubt about that. Happy Sunday to you, Josh. How was your day today? Was it okay?
It's a good day, Dean. You know, it's sometimes the chair that we sit in is kind of troubling, and I think everyone's a little bit shaken up by what's the events in Memphis.
Yeah.
No, no. And it's what do we do sitting in our chair that when we get there on Monday, we're able to have a at age level conversation with our kids. You know, Friday was National Holocaust Memorial, International Holocaust Memorial Day. You know, I had to spend some time. Normally, I do Reflection Friday, but I had them to reflect on the big picture as students, because we can't forget the past, and especially something because a lot of the kids that we service are coming from military areas, drug trafficking, killings, different parts of the Central and South America, that they see those kind of atrocities, you know, and it's the humanity of man versus to man. And sometimes in our chair, what are we doing to make sure that we put the appropriate light for our students? Because we cannot just shut out this thing. We can't shut this thing out, and they're going to see it one way or the other. And you know what, that beating that happened in Memphis was pretty heavy stuff, you know, and it goes in so many different directions. And what do we say? You know, it's one of those things, but we cannot not say something.
No, you're absolutely correct. And, and one of the things that, like, at least from my school, I look at it, we provide structure for kids. And as much as I want to keep them in the loop of what's going on, the real world is clouded with a lot of noise. It just is. And the school's responsibility is to keep kids in the middle of a fairway, keep them going strong, keep them learning, keep them believing in themselves. You know, we're trying to produce better kids, better citizens in a better society that we live in. But you're right, Josh, we're always faced with something on the outside that just keeps us scratching our head, saying, how can we ensure that our kids can either work their way through this or have somebody that can answer their questions for them? So again, I agree with you 100%. And, I know my staff and my teachers, and I'm sure yours are as well. They're ready for any questions that come. And more importantly, I think that they can hold that conversation in a way that helps kids grow. And that's what I would hope from any seasoned veteran educator out there.
And I think the crucial part is to have the conversation.
Yeah.
We can't, this has taken away that luxury.
I know. It's done a lot more, Josh. It's not just taking away that luxury. It's giving them instant access to anything and everything in the world. So we start thinking about things like that. We know there's trouble behind that phone. There's no doubt about that. And we talk about that at our monthly town hall meetings. We talk about the power of just hitting, just sending something to somebody, submitting. It's just sometimes it's so difficult and it can be so wrong, but yet it can also be so powerful to do the right thing and not be part of something on those phones. But again, those phones are here to stay. That news is at their fingertips, and our job is to help just kind of curb what's out there and give them a better understanding about who and how they can deal with all those types of things. So thanks. I appreciate that, Josh. Absolutely. Well, hey, let's talk about our guest tonight, Josh.
Right. You know what? We had her before, and the great thing about this creation that you and Chris did, Dean, is that it's provided you guys, your vision has provided so many different specific niches that need to be addressed in public education. You know, we've had superintendents, we had bus drivers, we have clerks, But one of the niche that you guys decided to select on was EB students. I mean, the labels are all over. It's the alphabet soup of education: emergent bilingual, EL, English language learners, ELL, whatever it is. But you know what? The reality is, that was a great show. I think we had a lot of views on that one, where we had people discussing how to help our educators. Our, like I stated, our campus deals with, I think we have 8 languages right now at our campus, and our seasoned professionals, um, they're always scratching their head, they're beating their head, and it's difficult, and that's what they do always. Now imagine, Dean, you get yourself 2 girls that talk Farsi, you got yourself one kid from Honduras and El Salvador, all of a sudden dropping in at your school, that you never have that. Your teachers are going to go crazy because it's very difficult. It is a challenge. And I'm glad that we have awesome educators like Carol, who's going to come up right now. It's going to help us out and spread the word so that our kids are serviced, because you know what? They are still the future of the United States.
Agreed, 100%. And you know what? Let's bring Carol in right now, because I think that's a great time for us to be able to actually introduce her once again. Dr. Carol Salva, nice to see you again. Thank you very much for joining us, and we're glad you're here. And such an important topic. All schools are faced with a lot of the uncertainties of anybody, all public schools, anybody walking through your door at any time. So the importance of being prepared, being ready, and more importantly, providing them access to their learning at the highest level we possibly can as a public education. So first and foremost, welcome back to the table. Great to see you again. How have you been?
Thank you so much, Dean. I have been great. I appreciate you guys. Y'all are doing such great work in the field. I love being on the show before, and this is an extreme honor to be back. Thank you so much. And my friend Josh, that I get to communicate with a lot, I appreciate you. I'm glad you guys, I got to hear the beginning of the show. I'm glad you're both doing well. And I appreciate
Thank you.
everything you're doing out there.
Well, thank you. It takes a village. We always say that. And whenever we can bring on strong people and strong personalities, and more importantly, educated personalities to help out others, it's a win-win for us. So, Carol, saying that, let's talk about your journey in education up until now, current, and your new role that you're in right now and what you're doing. Tell everybody who you are, where you're from, what you're all about, all that good stuff.
Thank you so much. Yes, I am. I live in Texas with my husband and my older student, my own children who are teenagers. And I became a teacher in my mid 30s. It was a second career for me. And I wanted summers off. I just didn't get into it for the right reasons. But that first year, I just fell in love. I fell in love with the profession. I speak Spanish, so my principal encouraged me to get a bilingual certification. And boom, I mean, if you get that certification in Texas, you are a bilingual teacher then. So I learned kind of by fire because I had an alternative certification. And the thing was that I got so much help. I got so much help. I realized early on that if you just humble yourself and you ask for help, help will spill in around you. Like with this show you guys are doing, there's so much out there that I wasn't aware of. So, so I did get a lot of help. My kids ended up doing well because I know how to be a part of a team and get out there to ask people. And then I started working in Spring Branch ISD. This is a district where I grew up. My parents are immigrants from Mexico, so we're in Houston, and it was the same district. It still is the same district where my kids go. We're right outside of Houston ISD. And so I worked there in the multilingual department for several years. We have dual language programs took up through secondary, and I was just honored to get to be a part of that. It's still happening in our district. And then in 2016, our demographics changed at one of our schools. Now we are in Houston. We are no strangers to emergent bilinguals, to newcomers, even to kids who are off level because of a journey or because they didn't have access to education. That's not new to us. But one apartment complex in our feeder pattern just made a deal with Catholic Charities, and boom, like on a dime, we started seeing just big numbers of refugees. And Houston is very diverse, but it was just this one feeder pattern that hadn't had that before. So it really threw us all off. Like I said, I speak Spanish, but all these kids, it was like you were talking about before, it was all these languages like Farsi in America. I mean, Arabic, Kinyarwanda, just it really, I was not the teacher. I was the person that was supposed to be helping the teacher. And honestly, I didn't feel like I was being very helpful. And we were just trying to figure it out. So that's how I started working with newcomers that had interruptions in education. The the district asked me to take over the class and try to figure this out. We had 32 middle school students that had huge interruptions or maybe had never been to school before. I mean, they had older brothers and sisters and little brothers and sisters, but the high school kids were a little more mature and the elementary kids were a little more pleasers. Who's that middle school? Is that middle
Young
school
age.
So you guys know what I'm talking about. Like I was scared of it. I had never taught middle school, but all the middle school teachers I meet, like they if you unlock the secret to working with that age group, they don't want to teach anything else. And I didn't have an appreciation for that yet. I had to really lean on people who were like, well, I've never taught that kind of student before. Yeah, but you've taught middle schoolers. Can you help me with this? I'd go to kindergarten teachers. Well, I know they're not in kindergarten and I don't want to use baby books, but show me how you teach somebody how to read. And then I knew second language acquisition, but this was so much more than that. And so it did not get better right away. It took a while. It took a while to get better the situation. But by the end of the school year, we were rocking it. We were rocking it. And so, yeah, but after that, I got moved to the high school. A man named John Seidlitz, a company called Seidlitz Education that I work for now, came to watch me teach because I told him I was using some of his techniques. And he fell in love with the kids and he's like, we need to write a book. And he put people on it. So that's kind of a long story. But I stayed in high school for a few years. And the book that Anna Mattis and I wrote about reaching students with interrupted education just became very, very popular. And now I'm a consultant with Seidlitz Education. And I go around and try to help people and learn from people still who work with these students. Basically, emergent bilinguals, students that are learning the English language. And my area of specialization is that they've missed education as well. That's
Right,
a long
Carol.
answer, Dean.
That's a great answer.
Perfect. And you know what, Carol? Just to tell the viewers out there that might not have the taste of that interrupted it, I'd like to give two examples that we have at our campus. We had a 18, 16-year-old and a couple of middle school young ladies that were never allowed to go to school by the Taliban. And when we pulled out from Afghanistan, they arrived in the United States, and here they never went to school to learn their original language, let alone take the STAR EOC in English, and they're going to be still held accountable. And also had this other young lady who came from me, I'm pretty sure Guatemala, and she was pulled out of school in fifth grade to take care of the cows in her village. And finally, after she was done taking care of the cows in the village, their family came up through as we see, they're coming in from Central America right now. And since she never went to school since fifth grade, right now she's a freshman in our high school learning English, and she never mastered Spanish. So those are some examples that we're facing here in Texas. So give us a little bit more from your book about this interruption in language. What do you target in that book? I know it's your love and your passion, but tell the person out there in Iowa, in North Dakota, in Montana, or over there where Dean is, over there in the Massachusetts area, once they start arriving with this interrupted, the examples that I gave, tell them about your book.
Sure, sure. And you know what? People do not need to purchase a book. Back then, when I started, again, trying to figure it out, I started blogging and I was blogging with zero followers. Okay. It was more about self care and trying to, I would just put posts of what was working or what wasn't working. And so now there are 100. And then I started podcasting. That'll be something like what we're doing here. But I have 114 episodes of how to work with newcomers at grade level and beyond grade level. That girl that you just talked about, Agreed. She has missed some of what our kids have had. When I say our kids, I mean like my own kids sitting at my house. They have stamina for test taking. They have been in school. They know what the test taking environment's like. They have the English language. They have the background for the math. They have things. But here's what I was missing. She has things too. She's been somewhere. Just because she hasn't been in our formal education doesn't mean she doesn't come with grit, come with curiosity, come with desire for the opportunity. She's going to come scared, usually. Scared, but hopeful a lot of times. And so what we were missing, or what I was doing, was I was looking at these kids with a deficit lens. I was like, my curriculum department was like, Carol, 8th grade's doing author's purpose. I was like, I know, I helped write the curriculum, but look, they can't even read. They can't read. So what do you mean author's purpose? Well, they can do author's purpose. They absolutely can do author's purpose. You don't have to read the book to tell me why the author wrote it. Lion King versus National Geographic. It's pretty obvious which one's the one to entertain, which one's the one to inform. And these are the kind of things that we need to keep in mind, that they can, not just that they can learn. Of course they can learn. They've been learning. They can add English to their repertoire of language that they already have. They can add English to it. And even if they, like the girl who doesn't know how to read in her heritage language, doesn't mean she can't learn to read in English. We're adding English, more English every day. The thing that the thing I needed to keep in mind that made the biggest difference was, it's not a disability. I know that sounds crazy, but it looks like a disability. When a child is sitting right next to a kid who was born here, and this child's in 9th grade, or this child's in 10th grade, and they can't read, even in their native language, and they're sitting right next to a kid born here, like those two kids, the one that just got here, is the lack of opportunity is the issue. The issue is opportunity. The one who was born here, we better figure out what's going on, because we've been trying to teach them for years, and we need to remediate. We need to figure out how to support them. You can't remediate something you haven't taught yet. So we have to know that it's an interruption, that it's a lack of opportunity. And then we have to hold a high bar, and we have to expect them to learn quickly. They should learn quickly. But there are some things that really slow down language acquisition and literacy development. And we don't do them on purpose, but I feel I was doing some of those things where those kids weren't learning very quickly.
Carol,
so some of it's a mindset.
Love that. Just very quickly, Sheikha Houston is asking here, where do we find your content? I want to make sure we answer that question. She's part of the Fantastic Four over the weekend here. So we want to make sure that we get that question answered to the best of our ability.
We will tweet it also, but my last name is Salva, Salva. So if you type into your browser, Salva C for Carol, salvac.edublogs.org. salvac.edublogs.org is probably where you'll find everything, because I have some Padlets out there with resources, tons of resources, but everything I've ever shared is there at that blog. My first place I tell people to go is to go to the menu and click on podcast, and you'll see 114 episodes. You can tell your smart speaker to play it, right? It's on Apple iTunes, it's on iHeartRadio, it's on Canada Radio. But if you go to my blog, the show notes are there. So you can scroll through and click into something that's of interest to you, like all the Padlets, that show. And, you can connect like that. And there's also a book study there in the menu, book study for boosting achievement. The name of the book is Boosting Achievement, Reaching Students with Interrupted or Minimal Education. If you click on the book study, you don't need the book to do the book study. You don't, because it's not that I don't want to sell books. That's great. It's that there are people in the world that can't get a copy of it because of where they are. And we need them to have access to support. So we did a book study on Twitter, and every chunk of the book, I wrote a blog post so that people could answer those questions and read and watch videos and things. So the guy I work for, John Seidlitz, and and Anna Mattis, my co-author, we're just really passionate about helping people help these kids, because I couldn't find resources for it. and nobody should be without resources.
Agreed.
So,
100%. So Carol, your book has sold over 30,000 copies and it addresses a very specific demographic. Can you tell us why you think it's been so popular?
oh yeah, I know exactly why. It's again, I keep saying John Seidlitz. John Seidlitz has a company called Seidlitz Education, and here in Texas, it's very, very popular. Seidlitz Education is very popular because, I mean, our consultants and our trainings, because he is adamant about the things we show teachers being practical. They have to be practical. You have to leave with things you can use tomorrow. I mean, yes, there are things, if you want to beef up the way kids talk to each other, we can show you a structure and you could plan one of those. But there are things for you to use tomorrow. And teachers need, they just need practical. You know, when that really hit me was when I was put back in the classroom. I had been a specialist for years and I feel like I was sharing really good things with teachers. But when I got put back in the classroom, there were things I couldn't get off the ground. I just couldn't get them off the ground no matter how much I wanted to. And teaching is heavy. So the book is popular because it's full of things that are practical, but they don't just help this kid. You know, teachers don't need things for just one demographic. They do need to know what this student needs. But if I show you something and then show you how the research shows you should get higher standardized test scores from doing this across the board, that's something that content teachers, I mean, I can give you some examples, but everybody appreciates that when it's practical and when it helps you differentiate and when it helps you run the entire class. So it's full of that.
Thank you.
So, Carol, specifically, when you go visit, you're on the road to Virginia. Hello, Virginia.
Hello, Virginia.
Somebody else help her.
Here
She's
she
up there.
comes.
How are you
I'll be there in a
helping out?
minute.
What do you do specifically to help these kids with an interrupted education? What do you do when you get there to support?
Okay, so we do training, right? We do training on how to help these students, but often I'm brought back to model in classrooms or coaching and modeling. If I get a chance, I ask if I can model. And it's not that I don't want to do coaching. I would love to do coaching, but I really want to know what the teacher wants. And 9 times out of 10, when I ask a teacher, they'd rather just see me model something. And I do have some teachers that I'm just so honored that I get to work with multiple times. And then it's this coaching, modeling, coaching, modeling. But here's the thing. I never promise anybody that I'm going to go in and it's going to be perfect. Let me show you what to do with these kids. I have some favorite things that always worked for me. And so I usually ask the teacher, what is the biggest struggle that you're having with these students? And I mean, as you can imagine, it's probably that the kid doesn't understand, the students don't understand what's happening in the classroom, or the students are having trouble expressing or connecting or with the content with the other students, that kind of thing. So content being comprehensible or developing their language. That's a challenge like you were talking about. So I'll ask them, I really want this to be teacher driven. And so when they tell me what is the issue, there's just a couple of things that usually solve for those things. And I would like to model that. And again, I don't say it's going to be perfect because I don't know their kids and I don't know the content. But anytime anyone would model with my own students and I could step out of it, that's a very valuable professional development. Even if I don't like what they're doing, it's powerful to see somebody try something with the kids. So the teacher and I get on the same page. A lot of times the teacher and I get on the same page. What would be a win? Let's be very specific and measurable. Are you saying it would be a win if those 3 kids spoke and talked? And if they say, whatever it is, then I'm going to try some things. And then that's the goal, is that we do a little pre-conference in the hall. I try something, but it's the debrief. It's the debrief because again, it usually there's something that goes well, but I'm also asking the teacher, how do you think I could have improved that? What do you know that I don't know? What did you see that I didn't see? So I don't mind falling on the sword. I'm there to help the teacher. But I'll tell you what my top things are. I I love to model co-creating text, co-creating a piece of text. So if they're just worried about those specific students being at grade level for science or something, what I'd like to show the teacher is how to engage them in a conversation. I mean, guys, we have Google Translate. We have some stuff. You can get kids into a conversation. Some sentence starters. Everybody say that together. Okay, I can check a box. We did some English today. We have 188 days with these kids. Let's just make sure we have a language target. We're going to use this little sentence to talk to each other about the science, but let them use all their language to talk. Because you can't, I mean, honestly, how much can you think in the language you're starting to learn? You need to use all of your language. So that's what I tell teachers first is what's our English language target for this class? Well, what are we learning the difference between animal cells and plant cells? Okay, let's go with the difference between an animal cell and a plant cell is. Everybody's going to say that. Everybody in the class is going to speak like a scientist. And when you turn and talk, start like that. And then whatever you need to do to talk about what we're learning. So when the kids start talking, I'm going to let them talk. I'm going to get them real low stress, talking. Then I'm going to brainstorm. I mean, not me, the class's ideas. I'll put those on a brainstorm, right? Just a few ideas from the kids. This is super important that I'm not telling the kids. I'm asking them some things. And then I'm going to write it in complete sentences, what they say, what the class is saying. So now I have a piece of text. I have a mentor text about animal cells and plant cells. It could be just what we wonder, like a KOWL chart kind of thing. But I want some complete sentences. And what the beauty of that is that the students, as long as they were included in the conversation, they have the gist of what that's about. It's my English, but it's their ideas. And now since it's student centered, now it's an anchor chart. I can write it very academically and then tomorrow come in and annotate it with images or kid-friendly language or whatever. If you use the kids' names, that girl, even though she's just acquiring English, she hears more English every single day. It's a little more English under her belt. And so I'm using her friends' names and her name and, but the key is that she's engaged because it's not a disability. That thing I wrote, those 5 sentences, it's about 50% high frequency words. You can teach phonics from it if you want to, but there's so many things. You can teach anything from it. But the sad thing was that I thought I didn't have resources. And everybody has resources. We're creating the resources. So if it's the ESL classroom, we do that every day in different ways. And we watch a Mr. Bean video or we do, the kids all have to know what we're talking about. They have to give me some voice and I have to write it. And then we revisit it for fluency. And maybe we put it all in the past tense. Maybe we put it all in the future tense. It's basically a mentor text. I love co-creating text from the kid's voice and then using that to teach whatever you want to teach. But if it's a science classroom, that might not make sense. I would say that exit ticket, that science teachers and content teachers often use exit tickets. Okay, I just want a sentence with that, one sentence. And that's the English that we're going to check that box. These kids you're talking about, when they're brand new, they're just repeating. But that's just right now. I promise it won't be just repeating in a few months if you engage them. And so in a science classroom, we might co-create text once, like a lab report. So if I'm going into a content classroom, I'm generally showing the content teachers how to structure a conversation. Just that part. Just structure a conversation where they're all included. Because content teachers are working really, really hard and they believe in turn and talk. They do believe in it. It's just they don't want the class to go out of control. Some kids aren't talking. That girl doesn't know what we're talking about. So I like to show them how to structure a conversation where 100% of the kids are talking about what you want them to talk about. That's one of our top tips is structured conversations using an acronym called QSSSA, QSSSA. If people Google that, 3 S's, QSSSA. Google that, hit images, and you will see 10 years of teachers swearing by it, content teachers swearing by that structure. That's another thing I like to model. So that's what I'm doing. But honestly, Josh, to answer your question, we're hired to train a whole high school, a whole district. Um, I'm talking about when I come back and help specific teachers.
When you're talking about co-creating text, you're talking about building foundations, you're talking about student engagement, you're talking about eliciting feedback. I get excited as a building-based principal because those are things we want to see happening in every single classroom. It's the foundation of learning. So thank you very much for articulating that out in the way that you do and the passionate way that you do that. So my question is to you is simple. What are some of the biggest challenges teachers face when they serve students with limited or interrupted education?
Absolutely. And I lived it. And it's, first of all, I don't know about all teachers, but I can tell you from my experience, one of my biggest challenges was that I did not think that I was equipped to help them. I was a secondary teacher, even though I had taught elementary before. I was a secondary teacher, and we didn't get training on how to teach someone how to read. And these kids come in with low levels of literacy, and so it's very daunting. Even if the child, even if it's just English, it looks like they are they don't have a lot of foundational skills. And like I said, I was looking at them in that way, like, what can they do? What can they do? They can't do this, they can't do that. So one of the biggest challenges is that there's this mismatch for background of the students coming in that have interruptions in education. There's often a mismatch in background. And so I'm very careful with my words here because I used to say they have low background. And again, that's never true. They all come with background, they come with rich background. And so I just don't know what it is. I don't know what that background is yet. So that's a challenge for teachers. But if you think about it, let's say these kids who've been living in refugee camps their whole lives, dirt floors, no running water, so no education to speak of. If that kid made a test about how to survive a refugee camp for a decade, the three of us would fail it. They know things. They know things. They're smart. They they're clever. They learn quickly. So that's the first thing, is that it's a challenge because let me tell you the different kinds of backgrounds, right? You can imagine they don't have the same background for science, for content background. They don't have the same culture background of the teacher sometimes, language, socioeconomic, how to do school in the United States. There are all these things that we need to be very careful that we don't look at them like, oh, they're a blank slate and they don't know anything. No, they know a lot of things. They just have different background from our background. Let me give you an example that blew me away. We thought they couldn't be in regular science classrooms because Josh will tell you 8th grade science is a star tested year. The state does that assessment and it is high stakes and it's heavy. And they'd never been in school before. The African refugees that I had that first year. But in the second semester, I went and asked a science teacher, Catherine Stokes, if she could please take a few of these kids because we were starting to make progress and we wanted to see how they were doing in a regular classroom, like we had them segregated. And she said, okay. I told her just 2 weeks, Catherine. She was like, I got the STAR test coming up, Carol. I got a full house already. And I said, just 2 weeks, please, just 2 weeks. And because at first she said, no, I've got too much. And I said, please, please, please. And after 2 weeks, I came back and I said, okay, so we just need some reflections from you, just so that we can. And she was very confused. She's like, what are you talking about? I said, well, the African refugee kids aren't going to come anymore. And we'd just like your opinion about what we can do and how they did. And she laughed and she said, I'm sorry, you can't have them back. You can't take them back now. No. She's like, no. They're part of my class. You're not going to take them. And I asked her if I could film it. This is a video on my blog. She lets me share this whole story, right? It's in the book. It's in that video. Because I said, well, show me they're doing. And she in the YouTube 2-minute video, she walks me around the room and shows me all of the anchor charts these kids helped create with their groups, right? Low and high pressure, all the star tested state, grade level standards, the ocean currents and how they affect weather, tectonic plates, all kinds of things. Of course they can be in that. Of course they can help their group do that. But what was fascinating, well, she's saying in the video, these anchor charts help the overall learning of the class. And the kids are proud when we put them up there. And they do fine in a group. They do fine in the groups. I mean, every single day they understand more English and they're more engaged when the content isn't babyish content. Their English was moving faster, their literacy was moving faster. And I'm going to be honest, they did not pass 8th grade STAR because they were just getting literate. But a few years later, when they passed high school biology, they will tell you that a lot of it they learned back in middle school in Miss Stokes' class. And one of my favorite stories about that, is one of the girls came back to the ESL classroom and was laughing about tectonic plates and how they're all learning tectonic plates and how her group did the best because she was the only one that had ever seen an active volcano. She said, they're all over my country. Ha! Right? How would we know that as a teacher? Like, Dean's asking, like, what is the challenge of the teacher? The challenge for me was I don't know what their background is. But I have to remind myself that when kids are in low stress situations, when they're engaged, when they're honored, when we hold them in high regard, those things start to become revealed more quickly. Kids get more comfortable, they start to engage, they start to share. And again, language is not a disability. All of y'all, I bet both of you have seen a kid gain English faster than other kids because this one's motivated, right?
True.
Even people listening, I promise, like we get blessed with like one kid a year that's like intrinsically comes motivated. Okay, so then our challenge is to help them all become motivated because we know that kids who are motivated learn faster. They learn when we're not telling them to. They're doing things. And there are things that help these kids find their motivation. And one of them is helping them feel competent and socially connected and honor them for what they do know. And it's crazy. It's crazy. What I was doing was I was looking at them like they had some learning issue. And that is not the case for students with interrupted education. I mean, it could be, but that would be the same for any group of kids. That's not the issue. The issue is opportunity. And we know people. I can show you 5 people off the top of my head right now who had interrupted education in school, 5 years, 10 years, never been to school, came into high school without education, and are out in the world right now doing amazing things. We are learning from them. They're writing books. Francisco Jimenez, Emily Francis, so many people out there. The kids need to know about these people. We all need to know about these people because there's no reason that they can't be like that.
Thank you, Carol.
I do want to honor that it's not a cakewalk. I mean,
No,
that
it's not.
teachers, right? Teachers have so many things going on. So that's a big challenge for teachers is differentiation. That's why I will tell you, structure conversations between students and have a language target, 1 sentence a day. And then just focus on making the child feel comfortable. And then watch and be patient and kind and watch how fast they grow with the right conditions. Sorry, Josh, I cut you off.
You didn't cut
No,
off.
you're
No, before Josh goes, I just wanted to make sure I recognize Marie Heath here. She's absolutely right. The biggest development comes when these kids are in with their own peers, and it's a low risk group where they can actually begin to feel comfortable and then migrate out and transition to a higher level. And I absolutely love that. And I know you mentioned that too, Carol.
Thank you. That's Dr. Marie Heath. Did you say Marie Heath?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Okay,
I
Dr.
did.
Marie Heath is a newcomer specialist. She has done so much work in the area of social emotional learning and Some high schools have classes out there, and Marie helped design those classes in Texas, innovative courses where students are allowed the opportunity to just navigate, some of those issues. But I mean, we're talking about things, to your point, Dean, what Marie is saying is they do belong with other students. That social connectedness piece is a big deal. So, hi, Dr.
Huge.
Heath, I want to say,
Huge. Yeah.
yeah. And it's hard to look at that and go, okay, I should do that instead of teaching the alphabet. But we're not saying not to teach the alphabet. We're saying you can't stop a 10th grade class to teach the alphabet. But that can happen at advisory time. That can happen after school. That can happen in an ESL classroom. But we can all help the literacy and the language. Hey, I want to ask you two guys something. Let's pretend you don't have any language learners in your schools. Let's just pretend for a minute. Are all the kids born here reading at grade level?
No.
And nowhere that I go do they tell me that they are. I'm sorry. That's an issue across the United States and Canada. So the things that we offer, that Dr. Heath is on my team at Sidelets Education. We're the newcomer division. She and I and Marie, Dr. Michelle Izquierdo and Elise Diaz, say we're a division. What we're trying to explain to principals and teachers is I'm going to show you how to keep teaching at grade level, but do a few things that help the literacy of the whole class. Just very, very practical. One sentence a day. We all read it together. I'm going to track the print. I want all the kids to understand the more you read, the more you can read. We have a fluency issue. Not popcorn read, you read, then you read. We all going to read together. There's some very practical things that would boost the literacy of everyone. But it's not like you have time to stop teaching math and science. It's about like when we go over our objectives, when we do our exit ticket, when we stop for that one turn and talk. They're research-based techniques that boost the achievement of the entire class. But we have to think about that kid and where they could be in 188 days if we teach like this.
In closing, I mean, it's a lot. I love the a lot, and even for me that I work with every day, es mi mole. This is what I do. Um, Give us a couple more. You already started with one tip right now earlier. Give us like two or three right now. We can put in our bag. Use tomorrow, Monday morning.
Absolutely. So I'm going to give one for content, a couple for content teachers, and a couple for the people who are teaching kids to read and speak English, listen, speak, read, and write. So again, I like to say the ESL class because I hope everybody has at least one ESL class. But we work with schools that don't, and that can absolutely be after school or an advisory. Volunteers help us do this kind of thing. So if you're a content teacher, I'm going to strongly suggest that you think about at least one turn and talk in your class. And when teachers ask me, well, what's the best if I only have time to do one turn and talk? Because remember that QSSSA structure is how you ensure that all the kids know what we're talking about, have a little bit of wait time, practice the language, and then talk in a low stress way to each other. And then there's some accountability. So I'm going to offer you that if you can, with your team or by yourself, think about what am I teaching? Not what the activity is, but what am I teaching? So a good way to think about that is what would my exit ticket be? What if I did an exit ticket today? If I did a ticket out of here, what would it be? What would be a home run? Okay, now I'm just going to ask you to put language to that. I'm just going to ask you, like, if you did a Venn diagram as your exit ticket, the difference between two things, but what would the sentence sound like? The difference between blank and blank is blank, or one key difference, or in a similar fashion. What is an academic sentence? There's your sentence starter. That's your turn and talk. That's where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. So I know a lot of people think it's not enough. One sentence a day. But what I'm telling you is that is the one sentence. This is Samantha Bennett, is an instructional coach of Chris Tavani's, and this is her quote. The person doing the speaking is the person doing the thinking. The person doing the thinking is the person doing the learning. You don't have to speak to think, but you can't help it. And I can't be standing in front of the class being the only one learning and speaking as a teacher. I want 100% of them talking about the biggest bang for the buck thing. So my advice is to practice QSSA, not with content, with SEL things like would it be rather be rich or famous, like a warm-ups. Get kids used to this routine. Then you can pull it back because you don't have extra instructional minutes to that one big bang for your buck turn and talk where the whole class is going to have an opportunity to reflect and evaluate on today's learning. You're going to get higher test scores. John Hattie, who is a researcher, says reflection and evaluation. You get it, it's about content, it's about learning. See, language acquisition strategies are not one more thing. They're the thing. They are the thing. They are tier 1 instruction and they're high impact. They're more than just good for all kids. They're the thing that raises your test scores. So that's the thing I would tell content teachers. Figure out what your biggest bang for your buck conversation is, have a sentence starter for it, and put it in a QSSA. And then just train the kids. On my website, we have QSSA slide decks that you can play for your class and get them used to it. If you're the ESL teacher, I'm going to say focus on getting to know the kids and find some way to figure out an area where they shine or where they're interested. Find some way for them to be proud and maybe look at the whole school. And is there a way for them to be connected and honored for what they bring? I mean, we don't want to make anybody talk before they're want to. But if you had your second year kids present about what it is to be a newcomer and share that with the new incoming kids and the faculty, the ones who want to, that sends a message to all of them that the student voice is important. And this is where you guys could be a year from now. And I mean, I would just hold them in high regard. Hold them in high regard and help the rest of the faculty hold these kids in high regard. That's my biggest tip, I think.
Carol, I'll tell you what, you've gone through some amazing things in this 47 minutes of a show here. So thank you so much. Where can people learn more about your work, your passion, your commitment to making others around you better?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for asking. Well, I belong to an amazing team. Like I said, Dr. Marie Heath, she's still working in Plano, but she's an adjunct with me. Elise Diaz is still working in Frisco, Texas with newcomers, but she's an adjunct with our company. And Dr. Michelle Izquierdo, who is a newcomer specialist. We are at sidelitseducation.com. Again, on my blog, salvac.edublogs.org. Just reach out. We are on social media a lot. We're watching you guys. We're learning from you. We really appreciate you guys. So we're here on Twitter with you. I just love that you're education leaders and that you are just religiously and relentlessly out there sharing free PD. I wrote another book with Dr. Katie Topple and Tom Wynn called DIY PD for teachers of multilingual learners. And it's taken a page from your book, right? Like what y'all are saying, there's so much PD out there. If we're so much better together, all of us. So please be connected. You don't have to work with emergent bilinguals for me to learn from you. And I just appreciate you guys so much. I hope people do connect with us.
Well, I'll tell you what, Josh, if we were on Thursday night, you know what I'd be saying right now? I think we scored another touchdown.
Touchdown. What's he touchdown? Touchdown.
Oh, Josh, what do you think about that, Josh?
I think that it's fabulous knowledge drop. Boom, drop mic. Great job. Carol, I appreciate you coming back, and it won't be the last time.
It will not be the
We'll do
last
something
time.
else later on down the road. It's fabulous. Hopefully we could bring Dr. Izquierdo. I've been sending out those Twitter DMs to her. I know you guys are busy. You're flying around. You got everything. Plus, you got a life as a person. So hopefully down the road.
A little bit of what.
So do you or your 3-year-old by your side tonight? I saw that little hand in there.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about blending personal life and professional life together.
It's
Exactly.
amazing.
But like we said, it's a great job. You're going to Virginia, but you know what? The bombs keep on coming this Tuesday. This Tuesday, office hours open, Dean. At what time, Dean? What time are we
9
meeting
o'clock
today?
Eastern Standard Time, Josh.
9 o'clock. Everybody, it's a 20-minute real world example that AP's principals have faced in the past, and we're going to ask you how you would handle it. 20 minutes, no more than 20
You got to
minutes.
be there to see it, though. We're not going to disclose what it is.
So join us. Join us this Tuesday, office hours. Carol, safe travels. God bless you. Muchas gracias. Adios. Dean Packard, take us home. Let's go.
Hey, listen,
baby.
all you guys out there, remember, we do what we do so kids can have a better opportunity in life. Don't ever forget that. It's not about us. We're not an adult employment agency. We are a kid-focused, kid-centered entity that we continuously look to get better. Carol, thank you so much for joining us. Unbelievable session again. Everybody out there, have a great week with your kids. Carol, stay on if you can for a minute. Josh, always a pleasure.